All right, I've got two absolute BARRA legends with me, and we're trying something new on Lockdown Live tonight. We're trying a three-way conference here. I've got Dan Grech, you're dialing in from Mackay somewhere, and Jon Millard, you're a bit further north, aren't you? Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Now, the reason I got these guys on board is because we do a segment here called Classic Events or Classic Tournaments, and we sit here racking our brain, thinking back through the 20 years of ABT, going, what are some key moments where some cool shit really happened? And this one definitely popped out. We printed out the report from it. It was in 2009. It was a 2009 Daiwa Lake Awoonga Night Championships. It says in the first sentence of this story, it produced a session of red-hot fishing, in turn rewriting the ABT Barramundi record books. Now, the previous 5 fish limit before this night of fishing that you had was 5 fish for 5.14 metres in the old centimetre scale. Of course, we use weights now. You guys came in with 5 from 5 for 5.83 centimetres. So you beat the old record collectively by about 70 centimetres. I want to have a bit of a talk about how epic that night was, and I don't really want to have much to do with it. I want you guys to relay to the people that are watching this show tonight, how good is a night of barra fishing when you're lining up double hookups of $20s? Who's going to start?
You go first, Greg.
Right.
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, right. It was, yeah, like, you got to understand, like, the whole context of the Barra Tour back in those days was 2-week events, one after the other of comp after comp after comp. So you basically had to take a month off work to pre-fish into these comps. And, yeah, I remember that the night before that comp, it was just insane. Like, we just basically went around to every point and started to cast and had 2 or 3 casts, and basically every point we went to, we caught a metre fish off it. And I remember we picked that particular point because we went there and Johnny had caught one, and it was like $1.15 and all the rest of them were $1.10. So like that was the reason why we ended up settling on that one point. And then from there, the night, like into the night, we caught nothing sort of, little stuff or whatever in the afternoon. And then as the evening got on, by 9 o'clock, there was just, side imaging was quite new. Like it was, we all had it, but it just to starting to kick into gear and understanding it. And you just see these shadows coming through that look like whales. And then we, were chucking up onto 8 foot of water and working these X-Raps down. It was just basically one fish after another. And the fish just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And we didn't know when they were going to stop getting bigger. And it was, I think we caught 20 something fish. And like there was like 1 or 2 90s in it, and that was it. And the rest of them were over a metre. So we knew that we'd had like a good night. But yeah, now looking back at it, there's at one point there, I remember I cast out, I hooked up, it's gone straight up the river, which is sort of underneath the anchor rope, and gone out that way. And Johnny's chucked out again, and he's gone, yep, I'm on. And then it's done exactly the same thing. And then here we are fighting backwards and forwards, going under and over each other. And I landed one, and then Johnny was fighting his, and he's leaned over and scooped up my fish. And then we picked it up, and it took 2 of us to pick it up while Johnny's still fighting this fish on the other side. And we put that on the deck, and then Johnny's was there. And we picked that up, put that on the deck, and we were like, holy shit, they're the same size. We rolled out the brag mat, and the $1.20, mine's hitting the $1.20 and Johnny's hitting the $1.20, and we're going, holy shit. We just had a double hookup of $1.20 fish, and just, like those moments, like me and Johnny have been lucky enough to have 2 double hookups of $1.20s. We had another one at Faust, but like those moments, that was in a comp, and to get a 2 $1.20 fish in an individual comp doesn't matter. It was just unbelievable. Like the fishing was just too good for such a long night. Just too good. It was just unreal.
So the night itself, was that the all-nighter where everyone's fishing all night, or was it the one where you finish fishing late in the evening?
Johnny, you go.
Yeah, this one was it was actually a combination. The all-nighter was probably the best one. And the thing is, at the time, the dam was like proper going off, like Grech had just said. So I think it was a combination of things. Like, I don't think you could get a better spot when everything was just going perfectly right. Like when we were pre-fishing, as he said, like we'd like stop at a point and literally stop there. Well, it would be 5 or 10 minutes, like cast out to go across it and literally hook a metery. And that spot there itself was just like the proper setup on the best time when everything was set up. And that night, like we were talking before about it, the all-nighter, everything just set up right, the way the breeze was blowing and just everything was the perfect scenario, just like bang the shit out of them. It was ridiculous. So it was both sessions. And like we were talking before, on the second tournament, which was the afternoon sessions, we sat there waiting for bites, and it literally took, it was like typical barra fishing. As soon as the breeze, we caught like nothing until the breeze snapped around to the right direction. And like we were talking before, in an hour and a half, we like filled our bags the second day. But that whole night, everything was just perfect, and it was one fish after the other. And it was a case of like hooking one up, and if you dropped it, another one needed on the way back to the boat. It was just ridiculous.
So you wouldn't even get to retrieve your lure back in. It'd like get crunched.
It just ate it again. It was it was off tap. It was as good as it gets.
Now, I'm just going to go through some of the results, and the results are here, and we do it with weight now, so it's a little bit different. But the way the weight curve works is the bigger they get, the heavier they get. So I'd have to go back and do some calculations to see what sort of epic weight you would have got for this event. But Grechy, you won this event with 5 fish for 5.83 metres. Jason Crofts comes second with 5.82 metres, and Jon Millard, you tied for second there with 5.82 as well. So there was 1 centimetre between you, and all three of you had beaten the record by about 70 centimetres. I want you to run through, like when you're talking about the fisher hitting it and then another one hitting on the way in, just run through what lure were you using and just the actual retrieve that was doing the job for you.
Well, back then it was like we were chucking X-Traps pretty good, and that's it. Our X-Trap 12 suspenders, and like we used a few different colours. Grechy. It was like I think we'd stay at the more naturals when it was like more light, and then sort of shift towards the whiter colours when it got dark. In saying that, it was that like mental that it didn't really matter at the time. But like we went through a lot of lures too that night. Like it was off tap.
What was the retrieve?
We used to mix it up, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like
we used to do sort of 10 casts of one of sort of tweak, and then a pause, tweak, and then a pause. Then we used to do tweaks flat out, so no pause in it. And I think on that night, I think that was the retrieve that was getting them. It's got to keep moving. And we were using colours. Like I got the lure here. It's on my key ring. That's how important it is to me. But it's the spotted minnow one, so it looks like a garfish basically. It's blue on top with spots down the side of it and a chrome finish on the inside. So it looks like a garfish. That's the deal. But as Johnny said, like you'd lose one and you'd be cranking it in, and they'd come and eat it on the crank in. So you hook up a metery on a flat burn on the way in after just jumping one off. So they were just like as Johnny said, the spot itself was probably the most, like when you think about it now. And even for years after it, it was like the pinnacle of spots. And it was only like that for that year. It wasn't like that for any other year afterwards. The dam had gone up and down, and it was never the same. But, like it just had a 60-foot creek line on one side, a 60-foot creek line on the other, came up onto like a 20-foot flat. And then the point itself just had a weed edge on it that caught the wind. So the fish would just cruise down one side, we'd intercept them, and then Crofty was on the outside of us. You'd intercept them in that 8 to 10-foot range, perfect for an X-Wrap. And they were sitting so high. Like, Johnny, remember the sounder footage of the sounder images of them just being right across the top, basically blanking out the whole sounder. They were just enormous shapes on the inside of us majority of the time. So they were coming through on the inside, then sweeping around the bend and dropping into the creek bed. But one that needed that wind to push them along that edge and then sweep them out. But yeah, unreal.
Yeah.
Let's have a bit of a look at the list of people that you left behind you in that event. Cy and Karen Taylor, obviously, some of the most decorated barra anglers in those times. Cy Taylor had 5 for 5 metres 55. Jace Wilhelm, who was he was a guide and a gun on that lake, 5 for 5.46. Jason Ehrlich, 5 for 5.45. We moved down the list and I see you cleaned up Moddy, 5 for 5 metres. He would have been a bit cocky when he got into the ramp saying he got 5 metres. Just tell us about that little conversation you had with him at the ramp.
Yeah, it was funny. And Monty was like, we were we were no gurus at sort of that stage. We weren't well known or anything like that. And we come in and we parked up, and Moddy's there saying, we got 5 meters. It's going to be tough to beat. And then there's kind of it kind of like, oh yeah, we didn't even really think about it. We knew we'd done well, and we're like, oh yeah, we got. They're all over 5. They're all over 1.10 meters. So we must have got 550. And the look on Moddy's face, he's like, I knew someone smashed him out there. I knew someone smashed him. You see the colour just drain from his face. And, like back in those days, a 5 metre bag is a good bag. It's a unreal bag.
5.14, wasn't it? So anything over 5 metres was near the old record. Let's go through and have a look. We had Carl Jochimson in that field, came 15th with 5 for 4.89 metres. There's plenty of names all the way through there. And back in 34th here, we got Craig Griffiths.
Craigie.
77. He's learned how to catch barra since, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's it.
I think he went out there again, didn't he, Grechy?
He
went out and got into him where we caught him. Like a lot of people did, actually.
Yeah.
Wanted a piece of it.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that's how you learn as a barra fisherman, isn't it? You got to find out where you go wrong and you got to correct it. Look, I think it was an awesome night on tour. Grechy, I remember something else from you as well. I remember watching an AFC episode. You were fishing with Phoenix Boats owner Gary Klaus, who was out from America fishing on Lake Kinchin, and you caught something that you weren't allowed to measure in. Who did you catch?
Well, he caught me. So we were fishing. We were about an hour into the session. We'd caught one fish, and we were overfishing a weed bed, and we'd switched over to surface. And he'd had a bad run. Like the Customs had crashed all his rods. They'd squished his rod tubes, and he had a 15 or something St. Croix rods. And you imagine, he's a well-off sort of dude. So they're all the top of the line St. Croix. So, and also all his 7-foot rods were now 5.5 foot. And then an hour into the comp, I just remember this, like it's like I'd been punched in the back of the head, like hit me right there, and 2 hooks in on the back hook, and then 1 hook in the front hook, and and the cameraman got it all on footage, and I was dazed, to be honest, and it took me sort of half an hour to work out what had happened, and then worked out how we're going to get the hooks out. Anyway, I ended up fishing with 1 hook still in my head, and then we sort of got the front hook out. But I had kind of crushed the barbs on them, so luckily that definitely helped. But yeah, I had blood all down my good AFC shirt, and my hat was all busted up, and there was blood dripping down here. None of it made the show, but Jesus, it was painful.
Yeah, indeed. And he started catching fish after that. He just needed to get the scent on the lure, didn't he?
Yeah, that's it. A bit of blood on there.
Plugging it up.
Guys, I really appreciate you taking the time tonight to do it. Are there any other moments before we finish up from that comp or from any of the Barra Tour events that really stick in your memory? Because I know a lot of guys catch a big fish in the Barra Tour. It pumps them and they remember it for a long time afterwards.
It's pretty hard when you're comparing it to a session like that. We've had plenty of good sessions together, like in the different dams, that sort of thing. But when you're something, it just blew everything out of the water, like compared to anything else you can have. And like, there's plenty of good sessions we've had, but that one's just like it kills it.
Awesome. Now, I know that Awoonga isn't in the same state it was back then. The fish that were all 1.20 metre then are probably all meteries now. It's a couple of years from getting back to that situation. But we have the Venom Rods Barra Australian Open at Lake Awoonga in a few weeks. What tips have you got for the guys that are going to be fishing that? Like, I know you say you were fishing a point, but if you were going to go back and just fish it without any pre-fish this year, what would be your tips for the anglers fishing?
Probably wouldn't be too much different, I think.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah. It'd probably just the time in the water, eh? Honestly, that was the biggest thing that used to get Johnny and I through was just we used to spend so much time on the water, and it's leading up to it as well. Like, it's not about doing it a month in advance, because at this time of the year, a month in advance means nothing. It changes the water temperature so much. But yeah, time in the water and just like keep an eye out for the pattern. So like we've gone into a comp where we haven't caught a fish in the pre-fish. All we had was a bite, and we went into that. There's bays in Timbra where we only had a bit of a sniff, and somehow in the comp you seem to turn that sniff into 4 or 5 fish and get away with it. So that's probably it for me. Is that there's just try and read the dam the best you can leading into it, and go from there.
And I suppose information's more freely available now. Like you can jump on Facebook, those sorts of things, see what everybody's using, all the new techniques. There's a whole lot more than what we were using as well. Like it used to be, you can't substitute time on the water, but now it's also, you can jump on your phone, jump on the computer, that sort of thing as well. But at the end of the day, time on the water is what does it.
Well, all I'm saying is everyone fishing that event is thanking God that you two guys aren't there banging bags like that, because that is an ABT classic event.
It was certainly special. Thanks, Steve.
Thanks, guys.
Right.